Hi there. Okay, this is part two. I have to move around a little bit because my feet are falling asleep. The bottom of my feet. Anyway, in this video, I want to talk about how I discovered that I hate people. How I discovered that I'm not that much of a nice guy, as many people would lead me to believe, and and as I have tried to believe, you know. So every time I come up against some truth about myself, about how, I'm hurting someone, like I remember many points in my life, many junctures where I have become enraged with people. And sometimes that was overt, where I've yelled at someone. It's more like a roar, roared at people. But it's also moments where I've said something, but I've been seething. Like this anger comes through that I'm trying to hide, basically. So like I'll say like, "Why did you do that?" Like that's pretty obvious, right? That's I looked like someone who was very angry at that point, and I was. But the fact is that I was trying to conceal that by saying it in a lowered voice. So I've seen many instances where that has happened. But why have I found this? Why have I found this to be true? That I have anger towards people, that I basically hate my fellow human beings, my brothers and sisters across the earth. Okay. The way that I found is that I often will voice how I feel, and when I'm in my more depressed moods, and I'm talking about depression in the sense of depression being an emotion above anger. Okay, so basically, if you're growing up in this world and you learn about the word depression, you might associate it with sadness, or yeah, with being sad. And while it's obviously it's like a low vibrational state, you're very low clearly when you're depressed. It's not so much because you're sad, although one of your root emotions is sadness, but the emotion that you're closer to in your depressed state is actually rage and anger. Okay? And I found that to be true. I feel like when I learned that, when I heard Jesus say that, that was a pretty big deal for me to hear that, to learn that. Because, that has been a big question in my mind. Because why don't people just call it like melancholy or sadness, Why do we have this term for depression? Depression clearly is something that's different than sadness, so we have a term for it. But why isn't it just sadness? And so yeah, it's kind of fallen into place, because I'll notice it in my own life. I'll become angry about something, and then I will, instead of feeling that anger, which could be troublesome in a situation I'm in, I might be around people, and me becoming angry and enraged would put people off. Simply put, it would upset people. It would confuse people. It would make people feel, upset. I don't know. I'm looking for another word for it, but or let's say actually another word would be bemused, maybe, or out of place, or just not comfortable, really. That's really more the word I was looking for. Becoming enraged among other people would make them feel uncomfortable, and I'm very addictively concerned with people being comfortable about myself, and being comfortable when they're around me. That's something that I want to remain the case. When I'm around someone, I want someone to say, "Oh, that guy's okay," And actually, it's interesting. Someone at work once told me that I'm like the nicest guy. And it's true to her. I was the nicest guy. And I haven't had a lot of interaction with her. She doesn't know me that well. So, in the few interactions that I had with her, I was pretty nice. And so it's pretty funny. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, I have this desire to keep up the appearance, the facade, you might say, of someone who is nice. Such a sweet, he's got a sweet personality. He's got a kind personality. So how do I, distinguish that against, the truth that I have a lot of contempt, a lot of hatred, yes, hatred for people. So let's get into that. As I was saying before, it has to do with the fact that I voice how I'm feeling. And when I ignore my anger and I get into my depression, I'm kind of like in between these two states. I will say, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? And people often ask me, because I'm in an environment where I work, and especially in Chicago. I don't know if it's this case everywhere, but I feel like it's more so in Chicago that, how are you doing? Hey, how's it going? Is a greeting. That is a greeting. And when I say greeting, it's like saying hi or hello, or good morning or good evening. How you doing is a greeting. And what you're supposed to say is good and move on. But of course, I don't do that. I don't allow that. If you're asking me a question, I'm going to answer your question. So I don't just say good, because first of all, there's a falsehood in asking a question when you're meaning it as a greeting. If you're asking a question, it means you're desiring information from someone. And if you're asking a question, but you're simply pretending to want information because you want to, make out that you're concerned, that is a problem. And it's rare that I'll be courageous enough to call people out on that, but I think sometimes I have. There's probably, I'm not even going to say a few times, but I think at least once where I've said, I don't think you really want to hear that. It might not have even been once. Now that I say that, I can't remember. I can't, like, in my soul, I can't feel a single time that I've done it. So maybe I haven't. But I have said things like, I'd rather not say, which you're not supposed to say. You don't say that. You don't say, I'd rather not say. You just say, I'm okay, and then move on. Oh, I'm doing well. I'll move on. So anyway, but in these opportunities, the other thing that I do is I'm just honest. When someone asks me how I'm doing, I'm honest, and I tell them. And so I've said the truth, which is often, I hate everyone and everything. When I search my soul, when I ask myself honestly how I'm feeling, the fact is, what I find is that I hate people. And I've done it enough. And in the past week, there have been a few times where I've kind of tried to get to the root. I've been praying a lot for some answers, I believe. And I've been looking for the root of my feelings. And even as I say this, I question it. So this is a hard thing about processing. You're supposed to have a level of discernment to where you can feel the truth when someone tells it to you. And you're supposed to be able to tell when people are lying or not. And I would have to honestly say that I don't really have that discernment yet. So a lot of people tell me that I'm okay. And sometimes I think they're telling me the truth, but sometimes I think they're not. I think I do have good qualities. I think the fact that I'm more honest than many people is one of my good qualities. I'm not fully honest. I don't think I'm honest to the point that I would enter the third sphere if I was in the spirit world, if I left the earth. But I think I am more honest than people. But it's hard to really know. But it's been other things too. It's not only the fact that I've asked the question, how am I actually feeling? And I've gotten the answer many times. And it's not all the time that I feel this way. In fact, it's often that I feel, it's not often, but there have been a few times where I feel genuine love for people. It's just that that's so rare. So one thing that I have a problem with is traffic. I get upset with traffic. I get upset with construction. When I was in Fargo, North Dakota, there was a lot of construction. When it wasn't snowing outside, you know, they would sandwich all the construction time in the few months that it wasn't snowing, or the half year or so. And even they would work when it was cold out. But anyway, it seemed like there was a lot. And also Fargo was a city that was growing, so there was a lot. And sometimes I'd be upset about the construction that was going on. And then I remember one day where, well, I would say I was often upset about that. But then there was one day where I felt love for the process that, you know, my fellow human beings were going through. When I say that, I sound like an alien. My human beings, these human beings that I know. But I felt this overwhelming love for people, you know, working through the challenges of the condition they're in. Like, do I believe that people will will we have the same traffic that we have when we have a more loving world? I don't think so. I don't know if it's going to be automation in automobiles, or I mean, not automation, but, you know, like self-driving automobiles, or what it's going to be. But I think teleportation is a very real possibility in our future. Better flying vehicles, you know. But I don't think we'll have the same problems that we have now. But I was able to love people, love what I see happening, even in the low state that I see of the world. But the fact is that it's so infrequent that I feel that way. Usually what it is, it's what Jesus would call mild frustration, you know, annoyance, you know, and consecutively throughout the day, it's like a frustration over here, a frustration over there, an annoyance over here, another annoyance over here, a mild annoyance over here, a mild frustration over here, a greater frustration over here. Now I'm getting into some anger. I can see it. You know, and then I'll just put that away, and but another mildly frustrating event over here, another mildly frustrating event over here, a little bit more frustration over here. Oh, now I'm really pissed again. Fuck, why does this keep happening? Another mild frustration over here. It's like the entire day, especially when I'm working, you know, when I'm here in my room and I'm in my comfort zone, I don't have those problems. But that's not an answer. Stay in your comfort zone. You're not going to grow. You're not going to change. So that's what I've noticed about my life, about my day. And it starts when I walk out the door. It starts when I leave my apartment, when I'm around black people, and I feel uncomfortable. I talked a little bit about that in my last video, but you know, I find it difficult to relate with black people, and I feel like they see me and they think certain things, and I don't like that. Like, a lot of black people think that I'm a cop. A lot of black people think that I'm up to no good. A lot of black people think that I'm part of this, you know, white race of people that just want to take from the rest of the world, from all the other races of the world. And honestly, I think that's still true. You know, we don't necessarily have slavery in our country, but we've enslaved the world. We are an empire. And we use our military might to demand allegiance from the rest of the world. So, in a very real way, I think it is true that I have this attitude of taking. But anyway, yeah, there's these two things. There's the realization that, there are times when I really feel that I hate everyone and everything in existence. It's like there's nothing that I love. Everything that I see, everything is wrong. There is no God. Love has not touched this. Love has not touched this vehicle. Love has not touched the creation of a vehicle that I can drive that's relatively reliable, that keeps me safe on the road. People have come together to plan and design and build this vehicle and maintain this vehicle and make sure it's fueled up every day. And there's nothing loving about that process. Because I hate right now. I have no love, I have hatred, I have animosity, I have anger, rage at this moment. That's when I say, I realize that I have, I hate everyone and everything. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous notion, but it's something that I have to acknowledge. And I add that to the fact that throughout the day, I am frequently upset, frequently riled up, frequently frustrated, angry. If I wanted to get into a rage, I could. There's many opportunities to get into a rage throughout my day. And this is when I realized that I am a very angry person, that I have a lot less love than I think I do. There's a lot that I'd like to say about that. Basically, what I'd like to say is that, when I see myself when I see myself attracting this event, which I think is coming soon, where I'm going to be homeless again, where I'm going to use the services of a homeless shelter and basically use the donations that people give to that shelter or the tax money that they receive to keep the shelter up. The work that people have done to make sure that shelter is there. I'm going to take advantage of those things. And I am 34 years old. I wasn't born disabled. I don't have these deep systemic issues from birth. What I have is a lot of mental problems. And when I say mental problems, it's really spiritual problems. It's emotional problems, because there is a deeper emotional self. The world, much of the modern Western world, the elites in that world believe that it's all about the brain. But if you have embraced a more spiritual, I don't need to tell you this, I don't know why I'm saying it. I think I'm just trying to distract myself. I think that's what's going on. But yeah, when I think of, the fact that I'm going to be moving into another homeless shelter, starting up this whole process again. So this would be my third time being in a homeless shelter. And it would be maybe my upteenth time moving. And it's not moving, with a plan or with money. It's moving with very little belongings and just starting up again. And I think it's loving to have money to settle somewhere. If you are moving, to have money to rent an apartment, to get a job somewhere and have money coming in so that you can get an apartment. But it's not loving to stay in a homeless shelter. And I ask myself why this is happening. And what I discover is that I have a lot of demands for people. And I have a lot of expectation that people take care of me because I don't want to take care of myself. And I guess I just want to tell people that if you look at your life and you're unhappy, and if you look at aspects of your life and you say, well, that's, aspects of your life that you don't like, and you say to yourself, well, that's because of God. Whoever made this world is a very flawed person. Or if you think to yourself, that's because of my parents, or that's because of this asshole over here, or that asshole, or maybe it's because of the elites. Maybe it's because of, the government and the deep state and, the politicians and the CEOs of companies, those damn business owners. It's their fault. That's why I'm in the mess that I'm in. That's why we all are in the mess that we're in. I would advise you to take some stock of how you are contributing to your current circumstances and acknowledge the fact that there is a law of attraction that perfectly brings you every single event in your life and every note of misfortune that you experience. This is an event for you to learn. Any feeling that rises up in that moment, take the opportunity and realize that it has a lot to do with me.